Good morning, dear students. Dear students, we were at chapter number 7, Understanding Marginalization, and we talked about the Adivasis. Now, children, we are stepping towards the next topic, minorities and marginalization. Now, children, in Unit 1, we have read that the Constitution safeguards the religious and linguistic minorities as a part of our fundamental right. So, it is our fundamental right that the a constitution is going to safeguard our religions that are in minorities and the languages which are in minorities. Now, why do you think these minority groups have been provided these safeguards? Why these minority groups are being safeguarded by the constitution? Now, children, first of all, we should know about what is a minority. The term minority is most commonly used to refer to communities that are numerical small in relation to the rest of the population, means the group of people which are less in number as compared to other groups. Fine. Now, for example, Muslims, they come in minorities, even Sikhs, they come in minorities as compared to the Hindus. However, children, it is a concept that goes well beyond numbers. So it is something which is even beyond the numericals. Fine. It encompasses issue of power, excess of resources, and has social and cultural dimensions. So not only the numbering we talk about, they in terms of power, in terms of resources, in terms of social and cultural dimension also, it is measured. Fine. In Unit 1, the Indian Constitution recognized that the culture of the minority influences the way in which society and government might express themselves. So, what does this mean? It means that it means that the culture of the minority is going to influence the way in which the society or the government is going to express them. Fine. Now see, uh, in such cases, size can be a disadvantage and lead to marginalization of relatively smaller communities. So, just now I told you, like, some are more in number and some are less in number. So, that size can also be a reason of marginalization, children. Thus, safeguards are needed to protect minority communities against the possibility of being culturally dominated by the majority. So people who are in majority, they are going to influence the minority people. So for them, it is required that their interest should be safeguarded. Fine. Now they also protect them against any discrimination. Now these people which are in minority, they can face discrimination. Fine. So in order to safeguard that, they required some laws. Now there are certain conditions, certain communities which are small in number in comparatively to the rest of the society. They might be feeling insecure about their lives, assets, and their well-beings. So this sense of insecurity can also be, uh, helped out with the constitutions issuing the safeguards. So now majority and minority, they can face a lot of, both of them can be facing a lot of problem. The majority can be discriminating the minority, or the majority can be uh, marginalizing the minorities. Fine. The constitution is providing the safeguards because the constitution has committed to protect the India's cultural diversity and equality, as well as justice will be followed in a democratic type of government. So for that purpose, this safeguard is required. Fine. Now in our chapter 5, you have read that judiciary is playing a very important role in upholding the law and enforcing fundamental rights. So every citizen of India, they can approach to the court if they believe that their fundamental rights have been violated. Now let us understand marginalization in context to the Muslim community, because they come under the minorities. Now according to 2011 census, Muslims, they were just 4.2% of India's population, and they were considered as the marginalized community. Fine, because as compared to the other communities, they have over the years been deprived of the benefit of socio-economic development. So their development was somehow less as compared to other communities. Now just check out the data in the three tables, which shows how they were deprived of different sources, indicate the situation that how Muslim community was not getting basic amenities, literacy and the public employment. Even if you will just check out the first one, you will see the pakka house, electricity and tap water. Comparatively to the other ones, you will just find out that the Muslim community is somewhere getting less amenities. Fine. Then if you talk about the literacy rate, children, there also the Muslims, they have less literacy rate. Then if you talk about the public employment, only 3 IAS, 4 IPS, 1.8 IFS. So there also their percentage is very less. So recognizing that the Muslims in India, they were lagging behind in various development indicators, the government set up a high level committee in 2011. So in 2011 a committee was made. Fine. Who was the chairperson? Rajendra Sachar. Fine. Now what does the committee examine? The committee examined the social, economic and educational status of this Muslim community in India. Now what was the report? The report discussed in detail the marginalization in these communities. Now it suggests that a range of social, economical and educational indicators, the situation of the Muslim community is comparable to that of the other marginalized communities. Like other marginalized communities, they included scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. So somewhere the minorities were also facing the same problem like that of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Now just take an example. According to the report, average years of schooling for the Muslim children were between 7 to 16, which is much lower than that of the other religious communities. So see, economic and social marginalization experienced by Muslims had other dimensions as well. What are the other dimensions? Now the Muslim customs and practices, they were also different. Fine, as compared to the mainstream. Some not at all. Muslims may wear like how do we look at them? Because they are wearing burqa, and they have a long beard. Fine, this way we just get to know that these are the Muslims. Fine, and we identify them differently. And even some people, they think that they are not like the rest of us, they are totally different from others, and and this becomes an excuse to threat them unfairly and discriminate against them. Now this threat which we have for the Muslims in our heart, a fear somewhere in our heart that they are going to they can be a problem to us or something like that. So this threat is somewhere which is forcing us to discriminate them. Fine. Now same happened with the Ansaris. We read in the previous chapters how they were not getting a house on rent just because of their surname. Now the social marginalization of Muslims in some instances had led them to migrate from places where they have lived, often leading to uh, ghettoization of the community. Means they had to leave their place and they had to migrate to some other place. Even sometimes they had to leave their community also. So this was a problem. And prejudice, the prejudice which is prevailing, that is leading to hatred and violence. Fine. So in the above section, children, we just saw about the Muslim community, how their economic and social marginalization is totally interlinked with each other. Fine. We talked about Adivasis, the unequal status of women in India. We experienced of all these groups. In fact, the marginalization is a very complex phenomena which has a variety of strategies, measures, and safeguards to address this situation. So, we should have some strategies to fight out with this situation. All of us have a stake in protecting the rights defined by the Constitution and the laws and policies framed to realize these rights. Without these, we will never be able to protect the diversity that makes our country unique, nor realize the state's commitment to promote equality for all. For if we say that we want equality everywhere, we had to leave all this. We don't have to practice all this because the Constitution itself says equality and justice. So it can be there only when this marginalization will not be there. Fine. So to conclude what we say, so in the conclusion we have discussed about the marginalized community, what does it mean, and how we saw through the experiences how means these marginalized communities, they were felt different from others. And we have seen different reasons also for each of the communities being marginalized and their experiences. Fine. How their experiences were somewhere linked with disadvantage, prejudice, powerlessness. And if you talk about India, there are more marginalized communities like Dalits. You will read in the next chapter. Marginalization is resulting to low social status, and they were not getting equal access to education as well as other resources. So these lives of marginalized people can and do change. Fine. If we are not going to change ourselves, how their life is going to be changed? So no one is marginalized all the time in exactly the same way. If you go back, you see the two examples of marginalized discussed. Each group has a long history of struggle and resistance. They were struggling a lot. These marginalized communities, they also wanted to maintain their different culture. They want the access to their rights. They want development. They want equal opportunities as they are given to other communities. So in the next chapter, we are just going to read about how these different groups have faced the marginalization. Find how they confronted these marginalization. So this was all about today's topic, children. Thank you and have a nice day.